Starting a group home in Virginia for a nurse or healthcare professional is not just a power move, but by many would be considered a boss move. Truth is, long gone are the days we could just wait on opportunity to come our way. We must go out and create opportunity for ourselves. Don't just take my word for it. Listen to successful entrepreneur, healthcare consultant, and registered nurse Ernest G. Flagg himself.
Okay, welcome. My name is Ernest Flagg. I am with Nursing and Behavioral Health Services. Another video here focusing on Virginia and how to start a DD and IDD group home in Virginia. Virginia is one of the most thriving states out here to initiate business ownership of a personal care business. It is for many reasons we like Virginia. Not just that, Virginia offers a beautiful pleasant environment for even living and raising a family, kids, and but it also is a state that is welcoming to personal care businesses. Doesn't come with all the convoluted issues that many other states like Georgia may have, and some other states that seemingly on the surface would be trying to push back and make it difficult and just create unnecessary barriers and obstacles for new people to come in and start personal care businesses. So they don't have that. So the process is a lot cleaner. Today we are focusing on the initial provider application for licensing a personal care business in Virginia for the developmentally disabled. And we are right here on the initial provider application for licensing. And there's a few things I want to highlight with this application. Firstly, I want to say the application, and if I just go through the application alone, not any very difficult, not difficult to complete at all. It's asking some very basic information you should have already at your disposal. Now, at the top of the application, as you can see right about here, let me see if I can get my little drawer thing out. Right about, Alright, so right about here, you can see this code. It says Code of Virginia, and it has section 37.2-405 and section 35 and 35 through 46. And this goes back to the application and the administrative rules that are unique to the completion of this application, and the administrative rules that you must follow in licensing your personal care business or group home in Virginia. And so everything that's here on this document is to an extent elaborated upon in those administrative rules. So keep in mind, those administrative rules happen to be, so to say, your Bible. That's your roadmap to getting through this licensing process, and it also holds the standards to which you'll be judged by when the licensing consultant comes out to the home and review the home and review your records, or if a complaint is made, you'll be held to those standards in the administrative rules governing the personal care business. Number 1, or section 1, applicant information. Very basic upfront. Nothing exciting about this, but I do want to point out something right here. It says name of all owners and percentage of organization owned by each person. Now you keep in mind, now they're asking you to identify the people who might have money or invested interest in your business, and these individuals also will have to do background checks. They'll do background checks on these individuals, so you need to make sure they're clean. Make sure these individuals can sustain background checks and fingerprint checks, which will be national fingerprints done by Cogent, done through Cogent, but it's federal. So they'll be looking in all states. So make sure when you come to this point, you start putting people's names on your application, talk about they got ownership, make sure they can sustain a background check, because they will be scrutinized. Their social security number and fingerprints will be obtained and looked at very closely. Let me see here. Let's see where we are here. Now going down a little bit, Chief Executive Officer or Director. Identify the person responsible for the overall management and oversight of services to be operated by the applicant. So here, just identify the director of the facility. Very clear cut here. Nothing. Also, who's going to serve as the community liaison for the facility, and this is the person. This is the person that will be responsible for being notified if something, the neighbors got a problem, if the community got an issue or something didn't happen, and for whatever reason, one of your residents then went up the street and hanging out at the QT too long, and we need to know who's the community liaison person to be contacted. That information would go right here. Section 2, looking at the organizational structure. Identify the organizational structure of the applicant's governing body. If you're a nonprofit organization, don't check this if your nonprofit status has not already been established. That 501c3 has not already been granted to you by the IRS. Don't check nonprofit. I don't care if you did obtain a nonprofit LLC or corporation at state level. You're still not a nonprofit organization, so do not check that unless you have that status already. Now, if you check off that box, you just need to be able to put forward that number at this particular time. Check one of the following: individual, corporation, LLC, unincorporated organizational structure. Okay, so for most of our clients, for most individuals coming forward, there will be a for-profit organization. Make sure that your LLC, your EIN, which is your employee identification number, and your NPI number is already ascertained, solidified, and has already been granted to you by the appropriate agency. Other than that, and you want it set up properly, because it's at this point that if something jumps off at that group home, somebody falls, somebody dies, and that happens all the time, and the family suspects mismanagement or neglect and abuse, if you happen to get sued, and if it happens to go through court, and if it survive court and get in front of a jury or whatever, an award is made, you want to make sure that your LLC and your EIN number and all that structured properly, because what will happen is a lawsuit could very well come forward, and it can be in an amount that the company cannot afford, or is larger than the assets of the company or corporation, and consequently the rest of the remains will fall over and spill over into you as a person, hit you personally, and then you'll be responsible for all that the company can't or don't pay. Particularly if it's not set up properly, you can end up getting dragged into the lawsuit as well if it's not set up properly, and be actually part of that lawsuit. So make sure you got that LLC structured properly, the EIN number set, and NPI number ascertained. Down here, identify accrediting or certifying organizations. You probably will not be a part of any of this initially, unless you have already been in the industry and have and have got some of these distinctions, such as JCO or CARP. However, if you accrediting counsel for services, if you have one of these distinctions, go ahead and list it. Now is the time to list it. They want to know. Applicant company information. Identify the parent company of person, partnership, corporation, association. So list your corporation right here. This is where you list the company information at right here. Okay. Here's your application for services. We're moving into your application for services right here. So you want to make sure that you understand the service types here. Information you can actually ascertain from the licensing rules itself as to what are the requirements for this. For a certain designation or service type. Now, be careful, because you don't just want to pick anything on here, and you want to make sure, go back to the rules and review the service types and the requirements for each one of them, because what will happen is you have to live up to these standards. Each one of these come with a different set of standards, as well as the population to which you can serve. So make sure you review this and don't just come over here and start pointing and clicking and completing your application and then throwing it in the mail and think that's it. There will be a problem, or there will be extra work that you have created for yourself unnecessarily. I'm actually continuously floating now through and the application coming up to section 5, service information. Here they want to know who's your service director now. Now keep in mind, every one of these titles that we talk about is going to need a job description laid out for each one of them, in addition to all the program material and other requirements that you're going to have to submit with this application. Job descriptions are one, and the job descriptions need to be unique to the organizational structure that you have created, but also include the titles that are identified on this application. Demographics, is it male or female? Adolescents, adults, children, tell us about it. Any accrediting body. Tell us about the location now. Here they go and talk about the location. Well, unique about Virginia is you don't have to have a location to start a group home in Virginia. You can actually just go through the application process and just start the application process, which most of our clients do. And a whole lot of our clients as well have their own facility when they start the process. But that's a beautiful thing that Virginia don't require a home to start the licensing process, because that means you don't have to come up with as much money as you would if it did require a home. Now, location manager. Tell us about the manager, the home manager now. You told us about the location. Now tell us about the home manager. That old they can pass a background check. You better believe it. You can't work in this environment. You can't be a manager. You can't be a director. These people need to know. We need to know. The state needs to know. Virginia wants to know about you. Make sure you're not a pedophile. Make sure you ain't been on any sex registries. Make sure your fingerprints didn't come up in a homicide case over down in Milwaukee or Delaware somewhere. So that's why they really vet out the individuals trying to open these facilities up for protection, basically, of the people that they'll be serving, because these are vulnerable populations. Number 7, the name and address of the owner of the physical plant. Let me know who owns the place. Yep, they're going to look at them. They're going to check them out too. Better believe it. Number 8, identify the location of the records. Where will the financial records be? Where will the personnel records be? And where will the residence records be maintained? We want to know this, okay? Next, it goes into the attachments, or the required attachments that go along with the application. That's a whole party in and of itself. We won't go into that in grave detail. I just would tell you, make sure you get all the attachments. Make sure you review the licensing requirements very thoroughly, and make sure your policies and procedures match these rules very thoroughly, not just getting the basics or the minimum requirements, but you better have a well-developed policy or procedure, because that's going to be challenged when you submit that stuff, and you're not going to be able to win just sending in basic stuff that you just scribbled together or searched the internet and got, or borrowed from your cousin, your brother, or your friend up the street that might have a group home. Let me see here. Where are we now? Moving along. Here in this section now, they're asking about current and past. Let me see here. Right in this area right here. They're asking about current and past provider services. So here they really want to know if you have been in a group home involvement or a business involvement similar to this, if you've been a provider before, and they want to know if you've had any sanctions or things lodged against you. Will they held that against you? They could, and it just depends on what. It really depends on what the issues were. I mean, they could very well hold that against you and create a difficult time for you to move forward in this process. And again, that really depends on the licensing standards. It depends on the sanctions that were brought against you at that previous company, because they could hold it against you. So a lot of providers, end up hopping from one state to the next, trying to, get another business opened up, and those previous, I'm telling you, your past, it can be a situation where your past, can be problematic for you, and this is the case. This is case in point right here. And we need certificate of application. You sign it, and mail it in with all the attachments as well. And this is the location where you would mail it at. Not only is this the location that you will mail it to, but the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services is the controlling or organizational authority in Virginia that's going to be licensing your home, coming out and inspecting your home, and as well reviewing your policies and procedures. So make sure those policies and procedures are written very well. Make sure you understand those licensing rules very well. Make sure you take your time, put that personal care home together properly, and make sure that program is written very unique and designed in a way that is that will display a need different, and it's also different from the group home that's up the street or the personal care home that's down the corner, because you're in competition with them, and we're putting together quality facilities nationally, and we don't put together any junk. So just because your mom left your house or gave your house, or your uncle willed a house over to you, don't mean it should be a group home. Don't mean that you should come over in the group home industry. Check out our website and look at our feature consults, and pick one. Our consults are paid, and we're more than able to help talk to you about this process and make sure you understand what's in front of you well before you buy that house, well before you invest a lot of money into coming into the personal care industry. Let us talk to you about really, shaping that program right, what you can do with that house, and everybody wasn't meant to come into this industry, but if you're going to come into this industry or try to come into this industry, get with us so we can help you do it the right way the first time. My name is Ernest Flagg. Our website is www.nbhsllc.com. Please check out our website and give us a call, or go onto our website and self-schedule a consultation.